In the last video, we pulled data from the web using an HTTP request. Now we'll take it a step further, connecting n8n to Google Sheets so our data gets written automatically. The operation that we are using here is append row. Every time the workflow runs, it will add a new line with the data we just got. Before we can connect n8n to Google Sheets, we need to understand how Access works. Google Sheets has an API that lets other apps read or write data inside your spreadsheets. But the data inside your spreadsheets is private, so we need a secure way to prove to Google that it's really us. This is where OAuth comes into play. Think of it as a login system for applications. n8n can now act in Google Sheets on your behalf. To set this up, we need credentials from Google Cloud Console. And that's where I create an OAuth client ID as well as a so-called secret. This is like a verification card that allows n8n to act on your behalf. In preparation, I've already created a sheet with headers. These headers are the same as the fields in the JSON placeholder data, and later you will understand why. To get the credentials, we go to Google Cloud Console and select the new project and call it n8n Sheets Demo. Next, we're going to enable two APIs. Therefore, we select the project we just created and go to Enable APIs and select Google Drive API. Google Drive API finds a certain document. In this case, we wanted to find this one. And then we click Enable. The second API we're going to enable is the Google Sheets API. And the Google Sheets API opens a spreadsheet and edit what's inside. Now that we've enabled two APIs, we go on to the OAuth consent screen and get started. So the name of the app asking for consent is n8n. And then I'm gonna put in my user support email. Then the audience is external. Then again, I'm gonna type in same email and create. Next, we're gonna create the OAuth client. The application type is a web application because we want n8n to connect to Google Sheets. And we're just gonna name it n8n Sheets. What we're also gonna add is a redirect URL from n8n because Google needs to know where to send an approval after the web application. Therefore, we're gonna go to n8n, go to create new credentials, copy this redirect URL, go back and put it in. All right. The client ID tells Google which app is asking for permission. In our case, it's n8n. And the client secret is the app's password. So it proves to Google that the request really comes from n8n and not from someone pretending to be it. So I'm going to save these two in notes. Then go to n8n and fill them out. The access is blocked, so let's get back to Google Cloud Console, and there's one step we forgot, which is adding a test user. So I'm putting myself as a test user. Now I'll go back and try again. And this is where I decide what kind of access n8n has in my Google Sheets. The connection was a success. Now we choose the file we want n8n to connect to, which is this one. If you remember, these fields are the same as the headers in here. So what we're going to choose is map automatically. The final step is execute. So the output is identical to the input. So let's see if the node ran successfully. And yes, it did. So one thing we want to check as well as the operation append row. So what we're going to do is run the whole workflow. What should happen is another row should appear with the same input. So let's try. Okay, let's go back. Meaning every time I run this workflow, another row will appear with the same input. To sum this up, We started with a manual trigger to kick things off. Then we used an HTTP request node to pull fake data from JSON placeholder, which showed how an API works. It's just a structured way for one app to ask another for data. Each response came in as items, small data packages that n8n moves through the workflow step by step. Next, we connected Google Sheets through OAuth, which is the secure way to let n8n use your Google account. The Google Drive API helped find the file, and the Google Sheets API wrote the data inside it. So in one simple workflow, we connected a web app with a spreadsheet, used an API, handled authentication, and saw how automation actually moves data across tools. For your information, I'm not a developer and I've never written a single line of code, but it's really interesting for me to see more and more non-developers build stuff. And it's kind of intriguing, especially for someone like me who's heading towards the end of his studies and constantly thinking about the future of work. And I feel like that's the perfect timing to dive into automation and AI. So think of this channel as my personal learning journal in which I try to simplify difficult processes and terms and hopefully make it easy for you to learn along the way.